Hey everybody, welcome to the Art of Creation show. I'm your host, Frank Fradella, alongside my beautiful and talented co-host, Rebecca Jane Boswell. Rebecca,
yeah,
how you doing this week?
Great. I'm coming to you from Austin, Texas today, where we've been exploring the new digs and checking things out. And what better place to be than in Texas to be even closer to our most amazing guest today.
I know. So I'm here in Italy, you're in Austin, lots of change going on in our lives. And luckily, the name of this show is Changing Things with Bret Rushia. I'm so glad to introduce my very good friend, my excellent good friend, Bret Rushia. Bret, how are you?
Hello, hey, I'm awesome. I thought you were going to say my ex-good friend instead of ex. I'm like, what?
Well, Bret, I think that really depends on how the show today goes.
Yeah,
so.
This show, I've heard this show is known to end friendships.
Oh, it's true. But so far,
right.
No lives have been lost.
No lives. We have a running tally, and we've been looking at every show, and so far we've lost not a single guest. So we're feeling kind of good about that for you.
Now, let's be clear. When I say we haven't lost no lives, I mean we've ended lives, but we know where they are, so they're not lost. So
you have markers in the ground.
Exactly.
So we did before the show, we did let Bret know that there are many, many rules to being on this show. And just like, I know in some ways I grew up this way, and maybe some of you also did, we're going to kind of do that show this way, where you have to get everything perfectly right. But we're not going to tell you what the rules are. So we'll just wait for you to mess up. And then we'll just make you feel totally horrible about it. So how fun does that sound?
And you can't forget the best part of that.
Yes.
And then when you ask what you did wrong, you say you know what you did.
Right.
Well,
So,
if you don't already know, Bret, I'm not going to tell you.
Exactly.
So Bret, if we have actually ever experienced life that way, right? Of like, there are all these rules, but we don't know what they are, and no one's going to tell us. They're just going to make sure that they make it horrendously horrific when we mess up and we don't fulfill it, right? Like that may be an invitation to change some things.
Yeah.
So
Changing things.
So Bret, if you had this sense of like maybe something else would be possible for this show, and maybe you didn't really think that going and playing the game that way was going to work for you, how might we go about changing that? And what if we could actually do that more in our lives? So what is changing?
I'm waiting with bated breath for this one. I can't wait to hear the answer. Bring
it. Well, I'd say the hugest key to changing anything in your life is let go of the significance, let go of the importance, let go of the seriousness. Yeah. Just to have a good time. Like, not even a good time, just have fun. Like, literally, like, just have fun. Laugh at yourself. Be willing to laugh at all the things that are like going on that are terrible in the world, that are terrible with you. It's like we think if somehow if we don't laugh at these things, that they're somehow going to change. If we like honor their seriousness and be like, oh, that's a serious issue. That is the hey, no laughing, Frank. You think that's funny? Somebody died. That is really serious. We have a crappy president in the United States. That is a serious issue. But like, what is that? Like, what does that do? It just, from my point of view, when you get serious about something, all you do is solidify it and make it less able to change.
Yeah.
That's brilliant.
So coming from someone that I've personally experienced your joie de vivre and your capacity to have fun in your life, and just to be the enjoyment, right? And so okay, that's great. And I happen to know that things have not always been super easy for you and super fun for you, and that there have been actually pretty big things that you could make very significant in your life that you have changed. And I'm just wondering, would you like to share Share any of that with us and give us some insight into maybe some of the choices that you made to go from what you were choosing to what you're choosing now.
Well, I was born a poor Black child.
Thank you. Yes. Yes, you too. I love that. Yes.
And
You
for
get
those of
me,
you
Brett.
who don't know,
You really get me.
that is a quote from The Jerk, a comedy movie.
Yeah.
I actually
clearly a lot of change.
Yeah, clearly. But no, actually, I grew up about 10 minutes from where Frank grew up in Long Island. True story.
So look we're all over the globe, and yet we all originate from New York.
New York.
What is that?
New York.
We should talk like this.
What are you kidding me?
Exactly.
Forget
What are
about
you talking about? Hey, so you know that place.
I am not even fucking kidding you right now. I was just watching this documentary on like ancient Rome, and I don't know why they have British accents. Like literally, it should be more like Goodfellas, right? Like fuck this.
I think what they're trying to say is that even in Roman times, the British Empire ruled the whole world.
Yes, they're a perceiving future.
Yeah, but all right. So that place, Long Island, New York, as we all know, is not the bastion of joy. It's pretty much a bastion of seriousness and like harshness and hardness and like, what the fuck you doing? What you talking about? What you looking at? Like literally, like when I moved to Houston, Texas, where I live now, I was floored. Georgia and I, we were both like floored that people would like on the street like talk to you and be like, hey, how you doing? And then like talk to you for like 10 minutes about things that were actually helpful to you. And I'm like, what? This isn't what should be going on. But yeah, so that's where I grew up. I grew up with a Jewish mother, which that into itself is another like 10 calls we could do. but yeah, all of that aside, like I should have grown up to be just this person who is totally incapable of choosing or changing anything. You're not really, as a Jewish child, you're set up as your mother to be the source of everything, and you're not really allowed to choose anything else that's beyond that. You're supposed to grow up and live with them and move back in after college, and then like move next door to them and have a family, and then have a whole sitcom where they come in and they're the comedic foils and stuff. But
it's true. It's not even a joke.
I know. Everybody loves Raymond.
Yeah,
it literally is. It is just like he's smiling when he says it, but we're all dying on the inside.
Well, that's the thing. I was, and at that time, and when that life started, it was actually like late into college where the reality of that life I was destined to have started like coming in, like descending, as Georgia, she's over there, she's listening to what I'm saying.
Hi, Georgia.
Frank says hi. She says hi too.
Well, I say hi too.
Rebecca also says hi too. She says hi to you too, Rebecca. Now that we've got that out of the way.
Yeah, and for those of you who are watching, there will at some point be an episode where we are blessed with Georgia as well. So I'm just going to put that out into the universe.
And then a third episode where Georgia and Brett come and play.
Oh, and so do the puppets. We want to have an episode with the puppets.
Yes.
Oh my God, this is getting better by the moment. But
so
anyway,
we were supposed to be significant. We were
yes.
being very serious.
So that life was descending upon me at the end of college. So I did what any person who wants to change things, who learned in school. If you were sick, you didn't have to go to school. I made myself incredibly sick for about a year and had my parents take care of me for a year. I didn't graduate college. I ended up getting sick and flunking out and living in my parents' house sick, so I didn't have to get a job.
So this is the chemical sensitivity that we're talking about?
Yes, chemical sensitivities, yes.
That was brilliant, cool. Brett. It was like exactly what you were supposed to do. Yep. Because it was the only way that you could be completely helpless and like take all of you out of the equation in order to make it work.
Exactly, and get to create what I actually wanted to do, is actually have a life where I had the freedom to choose whatever I wanted to choose and not have to live by that life I was destined to live. So it's like, how many of you out here watching this, like, have all these projections and expectations of who you're supposed to be, what you're supposed to do, the person you're supposed to marry, the kids you're supposed to have, the house, the picket fence, the total lack of value of you, just basically all this stuff that this reality tells you is the valuable thing that you're supposed to have. It's like,
you just described entire nations.
Yeah, but what, and that those are the things. Those are the things that actually make you valuable. You know what I mean? That's right. Where we buy the lie that, like, the only reason that we go to these externals and that we do everything in our power to get them and be them is because that's the only way that we're actually going to have value from the outside in.
Totally.
Oh.
So
yeah, but this is fascinating that you acknowledge that this was a creation.
Mm-hmm. And that was the biggest part of changing it for me. I couldn't change it all the way. So basically I started developing all these chemical sensitivities, and like I'd like smell stuff and my body would start shaking and all this crazy stuff. And so I was basically at like the most intense point of that, like in my room, like doing like 2 hours of like oxygen tank a day, and like having to wear masks when I went outside, and it was just like a total crazy person.
It's like the boy in the plastic bubble.
Yeah, bubble
literally.
Boy.
Yep, bubble boy.
Yeah.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. So then I was like, you know what? This isn't working. I'm gonna like kill myself this way.
Yeah.
So I literally, I was like, all right, what else is possible? Like, universe, show me what else is possible. Because by that point, I'd been going to all sorts of different doctors, and they were telling me like I couldn't get over this. Like, this is something that I'd have to end up living with and dealing with. And I'm like, as any good humanoid person, where it's like when someone tells you you can't do things, you're like,
watch me, bitch.
Watch me. I'm doing it.
So now this is really interesting, and I think this is an important point for people who, you know, our audience is very varied. Not everybody who watches the show is familiar with Access Consciousness or the tools of change, or that you are a professional agent of change, right? International man of consciousness.
I know.
That's on my business card. That's all mine. But what I find fascinating here is that, like, for most people, right? You have this thing, you have symptoms, you go to a doctor, that doctor does tests which confirm your belief in this thing. So now you've got this validation where, like, I'm not making this up, I'm actually sick. And you were still like, no, I'm just not having it.
Yeah, exactly.
Not having it. So this is fascinating. You can talk about that.
Yeah, what came into your world that kind of cracked that door open to where you even had the courage, I guess, or whatever that is, to say, wait, there's something else. What else can I choose?
Well, oh gosh. Okay, I'll say it. So at the point of the worst, I could actually feel it in my body when the electricity in the house was on. It was so crazy bizarre, and I could literally like feel it. So I'd have my parents like turn the electricity off at certain points and stuff, and like turn the heat off, and it just got too fucking cold. It got too cold. And I was also literally like pooping outside.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm like, all right, you know what? This has gone far enough. Like, I'm done with this. I didn't know at the time that I was creating the whole thing. Like, I didn't have the clarity I have about it now.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm like, all right, this has changed. This has got to change. And so then I started finding all these like healers and stuff like that, like this healing modality called EFT, like tapping.
Yeah.
And I started using that, and I'm like, oh, I can actually change stuff. Cool. And I did some sessions with this lady, and like we changed some stuff, and I could perceive all this energy flowing through my body when we did it. I'm like, oh my gosh, this stuff is real. I can actually like change things and change stuff. So the whole reason like why I brought this up in the first place was those things that one of the things I started to do is those things that cause those reactions in my body at the time, what I would do is I would like expose myself to them. I'd like go and I'd smell them. And instead of freaking out or going into like trauma, like PTSD, like freak out stuff, what I would do is I would just start laughing. I would force myself to laugh.
Oh, wow.
And that laughter alone dissipated so much of all that stuff. Like literally, and I've used this in my life ever since then. It's literally
That's
like
fascinating.
Yeah.
Just this choice to choose joy in that moment was something that helped break apart that solidity.
And choosing the release, right? Like having the sense that instead of going into the auto response systems or the things that like we just do by default, you know, actually choosing, okay, so if there's going to be a response to this in my environment, instead of defaulting to this fight or flight response that creates all this reaction and trauma and drama in my body, I'm going to flip the switch and I'm going to retrain my body and my everything, whatever all of this is, to go into the laughter, thereby setting all these other different responses in the body into action.
Yeah.
Right? So actually using it to your advantage. Wow.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So this is so cool. Okay, so the first time that I met Bret was a year and a half, maybe almost 2 years ago now, at Being You in San Diego. And I know about this chemical sensitivity story because I actually filmed an interview where Blossom Benedict interviewed Bret about this. And the amazing thing is that even the story that he tells now about it is different in that when he talked about it the first time, he talked about this thing that he had and he made a choice to change it. Hearing Bret talk about it now, he acknowledges that it was a creation of his.
Yeah.
And that blows my mind, right? We're like, even when I met Bret the first time, he was already this phenomenal facilitator and agent of change and blah, blah, blah. And even he comes into new awarenesses about things that happened to him, right? It's just like, this is amazing. Like you're like a miracle bubble boy.
Miracle walking.
It's
So you mean we're all ever changing, ever evolving?
This is what I'm saying.
Totally.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, well, what an invitation that is to all of us. So when, you know, lots of times I think there's this temptation to look at our past and let that be what determines our future, and to kind of always go back to that as the reference point for what we can or can't be or do or change and create in our future. And this is a total illustration of where there is a choice, even when people are telling you, no, this is just how it is. So for somebody who's experiencing something right now and they're like, well, this is how it is.
Yeah.
And there's no way out, right? It's that
especially when there's external validation of that point of view, right?
Yeah, like, science says.
Yeah, right. I'm limping on my foot because I dropped a fucking bowling ball on my foot. I'm not making this up, right? Like, Brett, what do you say to people? Help.
I mostly laugh.
That was Brett's response. We're just going to get this clip of Bret laughing. We're just going to cut out all these clips.
Yeah, there should be an app for that.
A lot of times people think, oh, I'm taking my shirt off.
Ooh. That's one way to change things.
Most of the times people think like if you're laughing about something, you're not taking it seriously. Well, you're not taking it seriously, but it doesn't mean that you don't have your total awareness and your total presence with it. It's like a lot of times people think if you're laughing about something that is serious, that you're like shirking it, or you're not going to do what it takes to actually change it or create something different. But you can laugh with total presence about something, about how funny something is, and just that dissipates energies. It heals the earth. It heals your body. It's literally like, it sounds so airy-fairy, but it is so effective. I can't tell you enough. Like, the two things that will change any situation that you're in with anyone is either bringing it to laughter or bringing it to tears. It's the two things that will change any situation.
Yeah.
Interesting. So now, as a facilitator, can I ask what you find to be the number one or the most common thing that you need to kind of like facilitate people out of before they can make choice, before they have the choice to change?
Or before they get that they actually can choose, even when it seems like they can't.
Yeah. One of the, I'd say, it's funny.
Which to choose.
Yeah, I know which to choose. But there's one tool where literally you just ask a question, ask any question really. But the question of, all right, so like there's this situation I got going on. Like, is there one more possibility? Is there one different thing that is possible here? Just one.
Yeah.
Just one. Yep. And it's like, all right, so I can choose to be upset right now. All right, that's a really good choice. I really like that one. All right. Like, what's one other
Yeah.
What's one other choice? It's like, oh, I can punch a wall. All right, cool. That's another choice. All right. So if I got those two choices, one other choice.
Yeah,
so,
I could set a timer and be angry in 5 minutes.
Exactly, yeah. Exactly, yeah. I can put it away for 5 minutes. What's another choice? Oh, I can laugh. Like, what's something else? So like you start adding these different choices that you're cognitively aware of to your palette. Like if you're only coloring with one color, is that going to be enough for you?
Right. So asking essentially
unless you're like
what else?
Black, just black.
Right. Hey, even Batman has yellow on his costume. Exactly. I'm just saying. Exactly. Like, there's a point.
Yeah. So essentially, you're asking what else is possible, and you by choosing just something even slightly different. Now, everything that shows up after that has the possibility of being slightly different, and the more that we add those slightlys together, the greater change. It's like when Dr. Lisa Cooney was on the show and she's talking about the 1 degree shift. Even if you're just making a 1 degree shift, it may not seem in the moment like it's such a big change, and yet as you continue having, choosing 1 degree, it begins to change exponentially.
Well, that's the thing too. It's like once you set the smallest bit of change in motion with something that's been solid, and let everything you make serious or significant, you make solid. We literally solidify it into our worlds and into our bodies. Yeah. And so those solid places are literally things that we have created as solid, because our bodies are literally like, they are mostly space. Our beings are totally space.
Yeah.
Yes.
The space, even science, the validation and the proof says that like most of an atom is space, like 99 point whatever % of an atom is space.
Yeah.
And so it's like we actually have that power innately to create things as solid, to solidify things into reality. Yeah. And what that does is it creates it as unchangeable. Yeah. So everything that's not changeable in your life, you've somewhere chosen to make it solid in some way.
Yeah.
Because nobody.
I'd also like to. Go ahead.
Nobody.
Sorry, finish.
I was gonna say, nobody can ever make you choose anything. Like nobody can do anything to you that you aren't agreeing to on some level.
Yeah.
Right.
Anything at all.
The counterpoint that I wanted to add here was that not all change has to be gradual. You can literally just change. You can change anything to any degree you desire.
Yeah.
Like that, and this is one of those things where like and this happened to me at that same weekend in San Diego at the Being You class. The first time somebody introduced a clearing statement in the room, and I heard this concept of going back to the point of creation, like where you decided something, like where you fixed your point of view about something.
Yeah.
And like my deeply held points of view about love had ruled my life. Right. I mean, absolutely defined who I was as a person. I was the epitome of the hopeless romantic. Right? I
know. I read some of your book. The
Love Letters book.
It's incredible. Oh my gosh! If anyone wants to read some of the most the most romantic things anyone has ever written or read anywhere, that book that you wrote.
Yeah,
Frank,
the book is called The Absent Lover. It's available on Amazon, and I'm sorry ahead of time. So
It's a good thing to
But the
read
thing
while
was-
running the
incredibly
feeling
beautiful.
well, thank you. But the thing is that my point of view about love was so fixed in my reality, and everything that I felt about soulmates and about true love and about marriage and about all of these things was like this fixed point. It was like literally being tied to the dock, where like the ship that I was sailing could only go so far because I had this fixed place that I couldn't sail away from. And like any traditional methodology concerning like psychoanalysis or psychotherapy or whatever, this would have been a painful, gradual change over decades to get me to shift this thing to the point where I could have a healthy life.
Yeah.
And hearing this clearing statement where it was like, what if you could just go back to the point of creation and choose something different?
Yeah.
Right? What if you had choice? Like, and it was like all of a sudden I was like free of it. Like, I mean, like I was free of it before he was done saying the clearing statement. And it was like the most amazing thing that's ever happened in my life was suddenly I was just a different person.
Yeah.
Because I could be, because I had choice now. And I was like, well, what would be fun for me now? Because let me tell you, that life was not fun. Right? Because like once I had decided that was what love was, and I decided who it was that I loved, and she didn't love me back the way I needed her to, my life was miserable.
Ah, yes, unrequited
love. And it was necessary for me to live out this romantic ideal, right? Like you can't be the hopeless romantic and have a requited love, not unless both of you engage in some kind of crazy suicide pact and you're a Montague. I mean, there's really no other way. There's no other option on the table. So I mean, it is possible to I mean, with choice, to change absolutely anything. Like, boom.
Yeah. And those things that are solid that you don't choose to change, like all the way. And please, like whatever you do, don't make yourself wrong for what is changing or not changing in your life, because it's literally it's all choice, and like nothing you've ever chosen to make solid or real or a limitation is actually a wrongness. It's actually something that you chose, and that's it. I mean, it's just what you chose to get you to the next place you wanted to go. And it seemed like the best choice at the time, and maybe it was.
Yeah, and can we unpack that a little bit more too? Because I'm also perceiving, you know, when people are watching or receiving this information and they're like, yeah, but what about when I was seriously harmed by this other person, or what about this, disease that I have, or, what about, my child who was killed by a car, or, like these things where it's very painful to look at anything like that as having been a choice or a creation. So, can we read that a little more?
Yeah, because that right there, that part about looking at it as actual creation, that even though it might seem like a painful choice to make, it is the one choice that will set you free totally, to look at where you created literally anything, even abuse, even I don't know, any disease, anything like that. You got to look and see what you chose that actually created it, because that is the one thing that will empower you to know that you chose it, you can change it.
You can change it. Exactly.
Right.
And looking at,
go
ahead.
One of my favorite questions that follows up all of this, right, is what about this do you love? I mean, what do you love about this, right?
What do you love about this?
Like,
what's the gift here as well?
Right. And so like there's this thing where like, where I had been in like, this kind of mourning phase for this relationship that wasn't working out forever. And it's like, well, what do you love about that? It's like, I don't love anything about this. Well, wait a minute.
That is always the first answer.
Yeah.
Right? That's always the first answer, right? But ultimately, when I was willing to actually be aware of what I loved about it, it was like that supports my definition of what a hopeless romantic is, right? Because I'm pining. That longing, that pining is a necessary ingredient for this souffle of misery that I've created, right? Like I had to have it. Like I couldn't just be happy.
Yeah.
Just happy to happily even talking about it.
I love this.
Yeah.
I love this show. This is a great show. All right.
Yeah, and there is that, like, okay, so what have I made so valuable about this? Or what, what about this is actually what I've been asking for that I'm just not acknowledging.
Well, even in tragic situations where like somebody has died or something like that, I mean, there is something about how you show up in the world after an event like that. If you were the grieving widow, or if you're the whatever, I mean, there is some societal value in wearing the black clothing for a year after your spouse dies and blah, blah, blah. But I mean, like, this is kind of like you're honor bound or duty bound to perform in a certain way. And so the emotional component just kind of gets lumped into that baggage, but all of that is choice.
Yeah.
All of it is choice.
Yeah. And how much are we, how much do we choose things that are actually destroying ourselves when we think that that's what's required in order to either honor someone else or be respectful of the process, or do what we're supposed to do as the appropriate response to whatever's gone on. And so what if we actually did have total choice and we could respond to situations in a way that's actually true and light for ourselves, instead of trying to fit with whatever we've decided? And when we choose that, what invitation do we then get to be to other people who then can like relax and look and be like, oh, I'm so grateful to see you choosing that, and maybe I could choose it too now, right? And what does that create on the planet when we're not all trying to be in this way of being that's actually creating more misery and more trauma and more drama?
I actually have a really great example of that.
Yeah, great.
I was we were going to, Georgia and I were going to Rome for a class. I think it was the Access Consciousness Certified Facilitators class in Rome. Yeah. And we had just gotten into Paris, where we were taking a connecting flight to Rome, and there were literally just two police at the where they stamp your passport, whatever the hell that's called. Customs, or no, not customs.
Well, the pass control.
Passport control, yeah. So there were only two people, and there were like literally about 100 people, and the line wasn't moving at all. We had a very close, like, short connection, and so I was just there, just kind of like, well, all right. And there was this lady behind us that was like, just like going crazy. Like, she was like, oh my gosh, like blah, blah, blah. She was talking to this person, can I get this? Can I get that? And then she sees me just being like totally relaxed, and Georgia too, just being totally relaxed. And she comes up and she asks, like, she's like, what flight are you on? I'm like, oh, I'm on the flight to Rome. And she's like, oh, me too. And she's like, you're not worried? And I'm like, no, there's always more flights. And she was like, but you're probably just going on vacation, right? No, I'm going for business. I have a conference I'm going to. And she was then like, and like, you could see the wheels like going.
The computations and the wheels turning, the smoke.
And she's like, oh, thank you. That gives me permission not to freak out about it either. And the whole energy changes, and she's, whoo, and literally about a minute later, she gets pulled into another line because she had a special different passport, and she got right in. And Georgia and I also ended up getting right in, but we didn't make it serious and significant, because have you ever noticed, like, the more upset you get about like something, or like if you're in traffic and you get really angry about it, it seems to go slower and slower, and like it takes longer and longer to get where you want to go. Yes. That's what that seriousness and significance and upset creates. It creates more solidity, less change, less movement. And when you actually have no point of view about it, when you have no need, when you ask a question, when you're willing to take everything that life throws at you with humor, you can literally get to choose and create your own path at the speed you would like to. And things just start changing like magic that aren't supposed to change like magic. Like passport control. Yeah. You know, and I can even I can perceive all the buts out there, right? Yeah, but like, not for me. Not in this case. Not. Yeah. But the thing is, that's totally right. Exactly, and that's exactly the piece where it's like, if it's just as easy to choose this
and this, what is it that makes this default setting seem like the easier choice, right? Like, we don't want to be the Pollyanna and be perceived as naive or, not intelligent enough to perceive the gravity of the situation and all those other points of view and all those judgments and conclusions about what it is to actually function from a lightness of being or function from question, function from possibility. And so it's like, it's this funny thing of like, all you got to do is just play with it and just see if things start to change. And yet I perceive so often this resistance because of the decision that, well, that's not real. That doesn't work.
Yeah, one of the biggest limitations that we have is where we're not. Does anyone hear an echo?
I am. I thought you were both just becoming godlike, and that's why you were echoing in there.
I'll have
Gary Mitchell on that Star Trek episode.
One of the biggest things I see that where people limit themselves by what they are willing not to be or be seen as.
Yeah.
Everything you're not willing to be creates the limitation of what you're willing to receive, what you're willing to change, what is possible in your life. So if you're not willing to be seen as a Pollyanna, you can't have your life be as easy as Pollyanna.
Yes.
If you're not willing to be seen as naive, you have to try to make everything as intellectual and intelligent and
complicated
as possible to not be seen as naive and to not choose from a place of elegance where you choose one thing and the whole world rearranges around you, because that would be so naive. I mean, people have called me naive my whole life, and I will tell you, I probably have a happier and better life than 99,000% of them.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. So this is the thing that's been coming up for me a lot over the last couple of years as online comment sections have grown increasingly volatile and antagonistic. Right, where like people are vehemently arguing about the Scarlet Witch's costume in the latest Avengers film, and like there's just so much hate being thrown around, and I'm like sitting there like, I enjoyed the movie. You can be right in your point of view, but at the end of the day, I'm happier than you are.
Exactly.
Right? Like exactly. I just chose to like the film. Like I chose not to get wrapped up in that stuff, and like my ability to choose that I just wanted to enjoy it kind of let me have a better life out of it.
Yeah, and so like literally anyone who comes at you with one of those intense points of views, the easiest thing to do that most people don't want to do is just say you're right.
Yeah.
That's all they want to hear. Literally, right. That's all they want to hear is that they're right and that you're wrong, and that's it. That's literally it.
Yeah, and then you just watch their face, which is just even more fun, because the last thing that anyone expects when they're in that place of proving or justifying, the last thing that they're expecting is for you to actually just be space. So suddenly there's nothing to push against because there's nothing resisting and reacting. And then it's like you're not playing fair. It's like they're like, wait a minute, this isn't how this is supposed to work.
Exactly. Especially in New York.
Oh my God.
You're supposed to go fuck you, fuck you, fuck you.
No, fuck you. Right? Yeah.
Oh my God.
Okay. So
you're right.
Maybe, Brett, you can identify with this. When I first left New York and I went to Florida to live,
or to
the
die.
thing that took me forever.
Die, Frank.
I was so ahead of the curve. I've always been a trendsetter.
Oh my God!
I am Long Island.
I'm crying.
Long Island, or New York in general.
Yeah,
you live in New York, and when it's time for you to die, you move to Florida.
Yes.
Yeah. There's a law at a certain age. Somebody comes, picks up your parents in a golf cart. They hand them ugly pants and they take them away.
Yes.
And then you have to go visit them once a year in Boca Raton. It's just how it works.
Seriously, my grandparents maybe maybe 3 years ago now. They're like, they decided to move to Florida, and I'm like, oh, good. They're on their way.
I want to go to Florida.
And you're like, oh, is it that time?
Yeah, I was seriously so surprised. I was like, I did not I knew this was a thing. I know this is a joke that people say.
Yeah. I make that joke, but you're not supposed to actually.
But this is actually what people choose. It's amazing.
Yeah, the joke exists because it's real.
Because it's real, yeah.
It's true. So the thing that I had the biggest trouble dealing with for like the first year or two that I was there was that in New York, how you doing is just a way of saying hello. You're not actually asking a question, right? So like everybody you see in New York, hey, how you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
How you doing? How you doing?
Start answering, they're like, whoa, wait a minute.
Right. I started hitting like Georgia, and like I'm at like a gas station. I'm like filling up the car. I'm like, hey, how you doing? They're like, I'm all right. And I'm like, what? It literally kept taking me back for like the first year. Like, why are these people answering this question? It's not a question.
I'm just acknowledging your existence.
I see you. All right, I see you there. You're standing there like a person who's crazy.
I love it.
So there's one thing that I wanted to circle back to. Brett, you were talking about adding just one more option.
Yeah.
To anything. Let me tell you how this saved my life, literally. There was a point in my life years before I found Access where I was actually suicidal, and the thing that saved my life was that I had committed this book to memory, a book on what's called pseudocide. Not suicide, but pseudocide, like literally how to fake your own death and get away with it. Like I had literally spent months not only reading but rereading and rereading this book to the point where I had it committed to memory, and I was fully prepared that before I killed myself, maybe I could just fake kill myself first, and then like what would that life look like? And the more I thought about that fake life, the more exciting it became, until like if I told you what that fake life looked like, it looks a lot like living in Italy and just having fun and riding around on a Vespa on the Amalfi Coast going ciao and having cappuccino every day. I mean, like literally, like if you're just willing to like play with that energy of like what would you like your life to actually be like?
So like congratulations on killing your life.
Inception. It's no, Hannibal. I think it's Hannibal. No, there's a lot of movies where like it ends with them like faking their own death and then like being in like Italy, like drinking cappuccinos, or like France. So you did it. You escaped your own death in Florida, and now you're living living your life in Italy.
Because I added just one more option. Yeah. Like I'm miserable. This isn't working out. Clearly, my only other choice is death, or. So you're gonna, right? There's Italy, right? So so I love this exercise of just like just one thing, just one other thing. Is there one other thing that you could choose here? And that exercise, that thing of where you start spinning the coin again.
Yeah.
I always talk about choice in your life being like a spinning coin.
Yeah.
Right, like a quantum particle. Like while it's spinning, it's both heads and tails, and like. And it's both, and it's neither, because it hasn't stopped yet. It isn't until you stop it and look at it and make it solid and significant that it becomes fixed.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So like adding that one other option is like flipping the coin again and seeing what else can show up, right? So every time you come into conclusion, to just go back into question, to ask what else is possible.
Yeah, that's a really, really brilliant analogy where you have the spinning coin, because like there's usually usually two sides to everything.
Yeah.
So it's like when we make that conclusion, we're only allowing ourselves to only have that one side, and the other side we're not able to do. It literally becomes fixed, like Frank was saying. And so like when you're willing to be that other side, you have all choice. You can be anything. You can be any part of that coin at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there was a
as
interesting
geek moment on the creative edge of the coin and roll down the street.
Right.
Yes.
So just to introduce a really fascinating little piece of geekdom here, there was this Batman comic book that I was reading once, and they were talking about how in Arkham Asylum they were treating Harvey Dent, who was a villain called Two-Face, right? And he made all of his decisions based on the flip of a coin.
Yeah.
Right? So like he'd get somebody in a death trap like Batman, and he's like, I could kill him or I could not kill him. I don't know what to do. Let me flip a coin. Right? And so like he would literally flip a coin, and that's how Batman kept surviving, because like the coin just kept coming down in his favor. And the takeaway from this was that the fascinating thing that the therapist was doing with them was introducing new methods of choice. So instead of them flipping a coin, now they gave them a 6-sided die. And like, now you've got 6 choices. What could they be, right? And ultimately what they wanted to do is get them up to like a tarot deck where they had 78 choices. And I just love this example of just adding one more all the time. Just like, what else is really possible?
What else is possible?
And then when you got to 20 choices, he could play Dungeons and Dragons with the 20.
This is what I'm saying, right? How awesome is this? I fire a magic missile.
Well, one of the things that I see too is it's like, well, I could make this other choice, and yet maybe I'm not fully willing to completely let go of this thing that I'm not choosing anymore, right? It's that thing of like, well, but I know this, even if it's not working, I know it. And, it's like, well, what if we were just willing to just put it right over here and say, I can get it, like setting the timer for 5 minutes. Like, I can totally be angry. I'll be angry in 5 minutes, right? But then you have 4 minutes, almost 5 minutes to have other possibilities and to choose other things, to where when the buzzer goes off in 5 minutes, you may or may not actually choose that anymore, because that may not be relevant anymore. And and what if you didn't have to carry everything with you? You could always take it back, and yet you also don't have to if you don't choose it. We have a jar. The kids have a jar, just an empty jar by their bed, and so whenever they have worries or things that are playing in their heads or things that, they're kind of churning with, that, it's like, okay, you just put it in the jar, and you can take it back in the morning if you like, but just for now, just for tonight while you're sleeping, just put it in the jar. And so it's that thing of like, we can all do that too, right? Where if you're not quite sure that you're willing to totally let it go, okay, great. Just put a pin in it. Just put it right over here, put it in the jar, and you can come back to it tomorrow, in 5 minutes, next week, in 10 years. And if you don't, well, that's okay too, but you know where it is, so it's going to be safe. It's good. You got it. But you don't actually have to keep perpetuating it and keeping it alive in your everyday.
So Brett, I have a couple of questions for you. We have a lightning round at the end of our show, but before we do that, I do want to know what you are creating in the world right now. Where can people find out more about you and whatever you're doing?
Probably my favorite thing right now is I've been doing these Facebook Lives that we actually created a web page for. Well, Georgia created a website. She's really great at creating websites. It's called Storytime with Bret.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, so I'll usually around like once a week or so, or whenever I want. I basically will read from different books, and kind of like, as I'm reading, kind of riff on them, give my takes on things, and it's been amazing so far. We've done maybe like 5 or 6 episodes, and it's always so much fun, and I always get so much out of it, and people seem to really enjoy it. I took a lot of inspiration from Bob Ross and like Mr. Rogers.
Oh my gosh, I want to do that. That sounds so fun.
Yeah, so it's available at storytimewithbret.com. You can watch the past episodes, and it's kind of just like kind of just being a space where people can actually just like relax into what they know.
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. I love that.
Have a friend that they can just hang out with sometimes.
I love it. Do you change your sweater and your shoes?
No.
Well, maybe just once you could do that for me.
Yeah. Put on a Mr. Rogers sweater.
Life goals. Rebecca's got life goals.
I do. It's like the one that would just bring me peace.
Before we get into lightning round, I do want to mention something that I've got out in the world right now that I've brought back since 2009. I started a podcast when I was living in Beijing, and it's called Lingo, and it's a weekly podcast of global pop music. Every country has pop music, right? Every country has their version of Michael Jackson and Ariana Grande and whatever, right? And my job is week after week as I go through the world and I check the top 40 charts of everywhere. And I put together an hour-long podcast of music from America and Britpop and Japan and South Korea and everywhere, literally everywhere. So check that out. You can find that on Facebook, facebook.com/Lingo Podcast, and find the latest episodes.
Well, I want to do some shameless plugging too then.
Do it.
So I've been having so much fun playing with different body process classes and all kinds of things in Greenville. And, at the end of the month, I'm going to be moving. And so there's some really awesome things going on in Greenville, South Carolina. Coming up this Saturday, we have a facelift class, so the energetic facelift class. Would love for you to join if you're anywhere close by or would like to get on a plane. There's a lot to see in the area. And then on Wednesday, June 14th, we have a bars class. And then the 15th through 18th, it's a foundation class. And the energy for that has just been super fun. Oh my gosh. It's like, oh, I'm coming. I'm like, yay. So I wonder who else would like to come. And then the week after that, the 23rd through the 25th, we have Susan Lazar-Hart. She was on one of our previous episodes, so you can go back and check that out if you haven't seen it. She's going to be coming to Greenville for a 3-day body class. So there are tons and tons and tons of juicy body processes in that class. And all kinds of things might change. So if you're looking for more ways to change things, especially with your body, that is super fun and awesome. So I just wanted to share that, put that out in the world. And how fun is it that we're all creating and contributing to what else is possible on the planet and within ourselves as well. And
I swear it's the last thing you'd expect on something called the Art of Creation show. I don't know what we think we're doing here.
All right, so
Brett.
lightning round, Brett. Get ready.
All right, I'm ready.
Brett, number one, what tool can I add to my life today to stop making excuses and start creating?
Right away. Laughter.
Yes. Laugh at yourself. Stop taking yourself so seriously.
Yes, I'll have it.
Cool. Number two, who inspires you to create more?
Oh man, that's funny with the who. I'd say pretty much everything inspires me to create more, and like the earth, just everything. Like I don't know, everything I see is just like there's the stuff that's really enjoyable. Well, actually, the stuff that's really great inspires me to create really great. The stuff that sucks inspires me to create even greater.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I love it.
Cool.
Wow. What would it take for all of us to, to play with that point of view?
I love it.
Yeah.
Right, number three, on this show, we talk a lot about something called Imposter Syndrome, which is this particular thing where you're afraid that at any moment someone's going to kick in the door and call you out for the fraud that you are until you've got no right to be telling anybody how to run their lives and throw you out into the street. And you'll live in poverty and misery. So, Brett, have you ever suffered from imposter syndrome? And if so, how have you combated it?
Yes, definitely. And be willing to be a fraud. Be willing to be a con artist. And nobody, including you, will ever stop you again.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. It's that piece of having nothing to resist against. You just get to be the space.
If you're willing to be a total fraud and con artist, then nobody can trip you up about it. Because you're like, yeah, I can be a fraud. I can be a con artist. No problem.
Yeah. And it allows you then to actually be all all that you have to give and to be on the planet that otherwise you'd be hiding so that you wouldn't be judged.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Number four, do you have a favorite book or a blog or a TED Talk that you recommend to others aside from my fantastic tome about love letters?
Well, there's also
let's not circle back to that.
There's also, I think, the Complete Idiot's Guide to Drawing. I think.
Yeah. Right.
Another.
Thank you. That wraps up our show.
Did I get that correct? Did I get that correct, Frank?
You did.
Okay,
you did. That was
another book Frank wrote.
Yes.
I love it.
Really, actually, there's another book called Steal Like an Artist by this guy, Austin Kleon, who lives in Austin, Texas.
Yeah.
And he literally talks about being willing to steal things and use them to inspire you and use them to create something different and to extrapolate and create in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Everything is stolen in one way or another, really.
Yeah.
Like
I think he talks about it.
I love going to the.
Ringo's totally pirate radio.
I love going to the Vatican because all the stuff in there was stolen from the Egyptians. Like there was so much stuff that was stolen in there. Like it's all stolen goods.
Yeah, just don't like that. It's like the one of the commandments, right? Thou shalt not steal unless it's for the Vatican. I mean,
For the Vatican. Hey,
Right.
hey, we need good stuff in here.
Hey, what are you kidding me?
I guess
Right?
it's not stealing if they're infidels, so it's okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay, Brett, number 5, last and final question.
Yes.
How will you outcreate yourself in the next 12 months?
That's a great question.
I keep laughing. That's how I'm.
I cannot wait. I cannot wait to find out. Oh my gosh.
I love it. Cool.
Awesome.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of another just pulse pounding episode of the Art of Creation show. My pulse is pounding. I don't know about yours, but I've got a heart condition. This could be serious. Bret Rushia, thank you so much for joining us this week. You've been just a delightful guest. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Such a pleasure. We really, it's been a joy. And I wonder how
Rebecca Boswell, thanks for being such a great co-host.
Oh, my man, yeah. And I wonder what things we can all change now.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much.
Before.
My
Yeah.
pleasure.
We both keep
Ladies and
interrupting you, Rebecca.
What?
We both keep interrupting you.
And ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to the Art of Creation show. I'm cutting her off now. That's it. That does it. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for joining us here again. I've been your host, Frank Verdella. We'll see you next time.
See you next time. Mwah.
Bye.
Bye-bye.